The rain had started before sunset, the kind that makes the air heavy and the streets glisten like mirrors. Emily sat in the passenger seat of a black sedan parked under an old oak tree, her fingers twisting the edge of her coat. The wipers moved slowly, clearing streaks of water that blurred the world outside. Every sound, every drop felt louder than it should have been. Inside that quiet car, the air was thick, not with words, but with everything that hadn't been said. Emily wasn't supposed to be there. The car wasn't hers. The man behind the wheel wasn't hers either. His name was Daniel Kind, thoughtful with that calm presence that made people feel safe. But Daniel belonged to someone else. He belonged to Sarah, Emily's best friend since college. For years, Emily had been part of their story. She had watched them fall in love, get married, and build a life together. Sarah would tell her everything. The happy moments, the doubts, the little cracks that began to appear when life got hard. Emily was the listener, the comforter, the one who said, "You'll be okay, Sarah. He loves you." But somewhere in those late-night talks and long dinners, something changed. Daniel started looking at Emily differently. It wasn't intentional, not at first. It was small things, a glance that lasted too long, a smile that seemed to understand too much. And when Sarah grew distant, Daniel filled the silence with conversation Emily never expected to have with him. Then, one rainy evening, Sarah invited Emily over for coffee. The house felt quieter than usual. Candles flickered on the table, and Sarah's face looked softer, almost sad. Emily noticed the photo of Sarah and Daniel on the wall, taken years ago at the lake. They looked happy. It's like nothing could ever touch them. Sarah set her cup down and said something that stopped Emily's heart. "You know, he cares about you, don't you?" Emily froze. "Sarah, what are you talking about?" "I'm not blind," Sarah said gently. "I see the way he looks at you. I've seen it for a while." Emily shook her head. "It's not like that. I would never," but Sarah interrupted her with a sad smile. "I believe you. But maybe he needs to remember how to feel something again. He's been lost lately. We both have." Emily didn't understand at first. "What are you saying?" Sarah reached into her pocket and placed a set of car keys on the table. "Daniel's car keys. He's outside," she said softly. "Go with him. Talk to him. See what's really there. Maybe it'll help him remember what love feels like." Emily stared at her, speechless. "You're asking me to go with your husband?" Sarah looked down. "I'm asking you to be honest with yourself, with him, with me. I'm tired of pretending everything's fine. Maybe this is what it takes for all of us to finally see the truth." Before Emily could protest, Sarah gave her a small nod, a kind of silent permission that made no sense, yet carried a strange peace. "He's waiting," Sarah whispered. And so Emily walked out into the rain. Daniel was standing by the car, leaning against the door, his shirt damp from the drizzle. He looked up when he saw her, a question in his eyes. "She told you?" he asked quietly. Emily nodded. "She told me to come." He didn't move for a moment, just opened the car door for her. She hesitated, then got in. The sound of the door closing felt final, like a line had been crossed. Daniel started the engine, and they drove in silence through the rain-soaked streets. The city lights blurred as the rain fell harder. Neither of them spoke, but the quiet said everything. Emily's heart was racing, not from excitement, but from confusion. What were they doing? Why had Sarah let this happen? Daniel finally spoke. "She thinks this will fix something," he said, his voice low. "She said maybe you could remind me what love used to feel like." Emily looked out the window. "And can I?" He gave a small, tired laugh. "I don't know." They stopped at a quiet street by the park under the large oak tree where Daniel used to wait for Sarah when they were dating. The place had memories, and Emily could feel them in the air. The rain hit the windshield softly now, like the world had slowed down to listen. Daniel turned off the engine. The silence between them grew heavier. Emily could feel his eyes on her, but she couldn't look at him. Her hands trembled slightly. She said, "You should show me what she fell in love with," Emily said quietly, almost whispering. He looked at her, surprised. "Did she really say that?" "She did. And I don't understand why." Daniel leaned back in his seat. Maybe she's testing me. Or maybe she's giving me a choice. Emily's throat tightened. Daniel, I don't want to hurt her. I can't. I know, he said softly. Neither can I. For a moment they just sat there, two people trapped in a moment that didn't feel real. Emily could hear the rain, the sound of her own heartbeat, and the faint hum of the streetlight above them. She turned her head and finally looked at him. His face looked tired, not guilty, not angry, just lost. She said you were drifting apart, Emily said. She misses you. He nodded. I miss her too. But sometimes when I'm with her, it feels like we're strangers in our own story. Like we're pretending to be who we used to be. Emily understood that feeling. The ache of something that's still there but fading. Maybe she thought I could help you remember, she said softly. Daniel's eyes met hers. Do you think you can? She didn't answer. The question itself hurt too much. The rain slowed, turning to a soft drizzle. Emily looked out the window and noticed something. Sarah's house was visible down the street. A faint light glowing from the upstairs window. A curtain moved slightly. Emily's breath caught. She's watching, she whispered. Daniel didn't look. He didn't need to. I know. Emily turned toward him, her voice trembling. Then why are we here? He exhaled, his hands tightening on the steering wheel. Because she told me to bring you here. To this exact place. Said it was where everything between us began. Maybe she wanted to see if I'd still choose her, even when I had a chance to do something wrong. The realization hit Emily hard. This wasn't about desire. It was about trust, fragile, desperate trust. Sarah was watching not because she wanted to lose him, but because she wanted to see if love could survive honesty. Emily's eyes stung with tears she didn't expect. Daniel, she said, her voice breaking, go home. Go to her. She doesn't want to lose you. She just wants to know you still care enough not to cross this line. He turned toward her slowly, his expression soft. And you, why did you come? She wiped her eyes and gave a small, sad smile. Because I wanted to understand what love looks like when it's on the edge of breaking. The two sat in silence after that, the rain whispering softly against the glass. No one moved, no one reached for the other. There was nothing left to do but sit with the truth that love, even when messy, still has limits. And sometimes the bravest thing people can do is not act on what they feel. When the clock on the dashboard showed midnight, Daniel started the car again. He didn't speak as he drove Emily back. The roads were empty, washed clean by the rain. When they reached Sarah's driveway, Emily saw the light still glowing in the upstairs window. Daniel parked and turned off the engine. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? Emily asked for reminding me what I could lose. Emily nodded, unable to speak. She stepped out of the car, the wet pavement reflecting the yellow glow from the porch light. Sarah stood by the doorway, her arms crossed, her face calm but unreadable dot. As Emily walked up, Sarah met her eyes. For a moment, they just looked at each other, no anger, no accusations. Only understanding dot. Then Sarah whispered, now you see why I love him. Not because he's perfect, but because he knows when to stop. Emily nodded, tears filling her eyes. She turned away, her heart heavy, but strangely at peace. Behind her, Daniel joined Sarah on the porch. And for the first time in a long while, they looked at each other like people who had finally faced the truth. As Emily walked home through the soft drizzle, she realized something. Love doesn't always end with grand gestures or broken hearts. Sometimes it ends with silence, with restraint, with the courage to walk away even when every part of you wants to stay. The night after that strange, quiet drive felt endless. Emily barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the reflection of rain on the windshield and Daniel's tired face lit by the streetlight. She heard Sarah's calm voice, that haunting permission. Go ahead. See what I see in him? By morning, Emily's phone buzzed. It was a message from Daniel. Can we talk? She hesitated before replying. Every logical thought told her to stay away, but curiosity and something deeper pulled her in. So she agreed to meet him. The place he chose wasn't a cafe or a restaurant. It was the same park where they had parked the night before. The sky was gray again, heavy with leftover rain. The trees dripped quietly. Emily walked along the wet path until she saw him leaning against the car, hands in his pockets, eyes distant. He looked like someone who hadn't slept either. "Hey," she said softly. He looked up, managing a small, weary smile. "Hey." They stood there for a moment, the silence saying more than words could. Finally, Daniel spoke. "I wanted to apologize for last night. It wasn't fair to you." Emily shook her head. "You don't need to. I chose to be there." He sighed. "Sarah said she wanted us to talk, to be honest. But I think she also wanted to see if I'd still choose her. And I did. I went home last night and told her everything. Every word." Emily's stomach tightened. "Everything." "Yes," he said. And she didn't cry. She just looked at me and said, "I knew you wouldn't cross the line." Then she went upstairs and closed the door. The quiet that followed felt heavy. Emily sat down on a nearby bench, the wood damp from the rain. "She's testing you," she said. "Or maybe she's testing herself." Daniel nodded slowly. "I think she's scared. She thinks I don't love her anymore." Emily looked at him. "Do you?" He didn't answer right away. His gaze drifted toward the trees. "I do. But love changes, doesn't it? It gets buried under routine, bills, schedules, the same words said too many times. I still love her. But sometimes I forget what that even means." Emily listened quietly, her hands clasped together. "And me? Where do I fit into that?" He turned to her. "You were a reminder. Not of something I wanted to steal, but something I'd lost: warmth, curiosity, spark people have when love feels new." His words stung more than she expected. Not because they were cruel, but because they were honest. She wasn't the villain, but she wasn't innocent either. She had let herself feel too much. "Daniel," she said softly, "this, whatever this is, it's hurting her. And it's starting to hurt you, too." He exhaled deeply. "I know, but I don't know how to fix it. She doesn't talk to me anymore. We share a house, not a life. I come home, she's on her laptop. We sleep in the same bed, but it feels like we're miles apart." Emily felt tears pressing behind her eyes. "Maybe she gave you that permission last night because she's desperate for something to change. She wanted to shake you. To make you feel again?" Daniel sat beside her on the bench. The space between them was small but careful. "Do you think she still loves me?" he asked. "Yes," Emily said without hesitation. "If she didn't, she wouldn't have let me near you." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air smelled of rain and wet grass. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, breaking the stillness. Daniel leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "When she and I first met," he said, "we used to talk about everything: dreams, fears, silly things. Now every conversation feels like work. I miss when love felt light." Emily gave a small, sad smile. "Maybe it still can, but you can't rebuild it by standing in the ashes." He looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you can't fix your marriage by testing its limits," she said gently. "You have to choose it. Really choose it. Even when it's messy. Even when someone else makes you feel something easier." Daniel nodded slowly, letting her words sink in. "You sound like her," he said quietly. Emily laughed softly, shaking her head. "No, she's stronger than me. She's the one who stood there last night and watched from that window. I could never do that." He glanced at her, his voice low. "She told me she was watching. Said she wanted to see if I'd remember who I was." Emily turned to him sharply. "And did you?" He hesitated. "Yes, I think I did. But it doesn't make this any easier." The clouds above them shifted, letting a pale light break through. Emily looked up at the sky, blinking back tears. "You know what's strange?" she said. "For years, I thought I understood love. But last night made me realize how complicated it is. It's not just about wanting someone. It's about choosing who you'll hurt and who you'll protect." Daniel's eyes softened. "And who are you choosing to protect?" "You and her," she said. even if it means losing both of you." Her honesty made him look away. The truth had weight now, heavy but freeing. "I don't know what she'll do next," Daniel said. "She's quiet, calm. That's when she's the hardest to read." "She's not planning anything," Emily said. "She's thinking, trying to decide if she can forgive you or if she can forgive me." He nodded slowly, his voice breaking. "You've always been the bridge between us. Maybe that's why this hurts so much. I don't want to lose either of you." Emily stood up, brushing rain from her coat. "Then don't go to her. Tell her the truth again, all of it. Tell her you still want to fight for her. Not because you feel guilty, but because you remember what it's like to love her." Daniel looked up at her, unsure. "And you?" She smiled faintly. "I'll be fine. Maybe not right away, but I will be. Some stories aren't meant to end in love. Some are just meant to remind us what love costs." He stood too, taking a hesitant step closer. "Emily," she stopped him with a shake of her head. "Don't. Whatever you're about to say, keep it. Give it to her instead." He nodded slowly, his eyes glistening. "Thank you." As Emily turned to leave, she caught her reflection in the car window, tired eyes, messy hair. A woman who had just learned how fragile hearts can be. She walked away from the park, her steps slow. The air cooled against her skin, but halfway down the path, she heard him call her name. She turned. Daniel was standing by the car, his voice steady but full of emotion. "You're a good person, Emily. I hope you believe that." She smiled through her tears. "So are you. Go home, Daniel." He nodded once and got into the car. The sound of the engine starting echoed softly through the trees. Emily watched the taillights fade down the road until they disappeared completely as she walked toward the street. The drizzle began again, gentle, forgiving. The world felt quiet, peaceful even. And for the first time in a long while, Emily didn't feel trapped by guilt. She felt lighter. That evening, she sat by her window, sipping tea, when her phone buzzed again. It was Sarah. The message was short. "He told me everything. Thank you." Emily smiled faintly, tears blurring her vision. She typed back, "Take care of him. He still loves you." A few minutes later, Sarah replied, "And I love him too. Maybe we just forgot how to show it." Emily put her phone down and stared out at the rain, feeling the quiet relief of closure. She wasn't part of their story anymore, at least not in the same way. But in a strange, gentle way. She had helped them find each other again. The rain outside turned soft and rhythmic, a sound like forgiveness. And as Emily watched it fall, she realized that love isn't always about keeping someone. Sometimes it's about helping them go back where they belong. She closed her eyes, whispering into the still air, "Goodbye, Daniel." The morning after everything came undone, the rain was finally gone. The air smelled clean, the streets glistened under the pale light of dawn. And the world felt quieter, as if even the sky had grown tired of the noise between three hearts. Emily stood by her window, wrapped in a blanket, holding a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. She hadn't slept. She kept replaying the night in her mind, the car, the park, the silence. Daniel's voice breaking under the weight of truth. She thought about Sarah, too. The way she had stood in that doorway when Emily returned, her face calm, her eyes unreadable. No shouting, no tears. Just stillness. That kind of quiet was scarier than anger. It meant something had changed forever. When the clock struck 9, Emily's phone buzzed. A message from Sarah. Just 3 words. "Come over, please." Emily's heart skipped. She wasn't sure if it was a request for peace or a confrontation. But she owed her friend a conversation, no matter how hard it would be. She got dressed quickly, simple jeans, a gray sweater, her hair tied back, and walked the familiar few blocks to Sarah's house. The streets were still damp, and puddles reflected the soft sunlight like broken mirrors. When she reached the front porch, the door was already open. Sarah stood there, her arms crossed, but her expression wasn't cold. She looked tired but human, not angry, not vengeful, just real. "Come in," she said quietly. Emily stepped inside. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air, and 2 mugs sat on the kitchen counter. Sarah motioned toward one. "I made your favorite. I figured we'd need it." Emily sat down, her heart pounding. "Sarah, I'm so sorry." She started. Sarah held up a hand. "Don't. Not yet. Let me talk first." Emily nodded. Sarah took a breath. "He told me everything. The drive, the rain, the way you talked. I know you didn't cross any line. I know you didn't betray me that way. But Emily?" Her voice softened, trembling slightly. "It still hurt." "I know," Emily whispered. "I never meant to." "I know you didn't," Sarah said quickly. "You've always been good to me. You were just there. And sometimes that's all it takes for feelings to grow where they shouldn't." The honesty in her tone made Emily's throat tighten. "I didn't want to feel anything," she said quietly. "It just happened. And when it did, I hated myself for it." Sarah looked down at her coffee, her voice low. "Do you want to know why I let you go with him?" Emily hesitated, then nodded. "Because I needed to see what he would do," Sarah said. "I needed to know if he was still the man I married, the one who knew how to stop before he destroyed something good. I didn't want to lose him, but I also didn't want to live pretending we were okay when we weren't." Emily listened carefully. "You wanted to test him." Sarah smiled faintly, but it wasn't a happy smile. "I wanted to test all of us. Him, you, me, and in some strange way, we all passed. But it still broke something." Silence filled the room. The sound of a bird outside the window felt louder than it should have been. Emily looked at her hands. "So what happens now?" Sarah leaned back, her eyes thoughtful. "He's trying. He's been up all night talking to me, saying he remembers why he fell in love with me in the first place. I believe him. But believing doesn't erase the pain." "I understand," Emily said softly. Sarah looked at her, eyes full of something Emily couldn't quite name. Sorrow, maybe, but also compassion. "I don't hate you, Emily. I never could. But I think we both need space. For a while." Emily nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think so too." The 2 women sat quietly for a moment. There was no drama, no shouting, just 2 hearts acknowledging what had happened. It wasn't betrayal in the traditional sense, no affair, no secret kisses, but it had been emotional, deep, and dangerous. And they both knew things would never be quite the same again. Sarah stood and walked toward the window, looking out at the gray morning. "You know, when we were younger," she said softly, "I thought love was about holding on. I thought if you just tried hard enough, people wouldn't slip away. But now I see it's more about letting go and trusting that what's meant to stay will stay." Emily followed her gaze. "You're right. I used to think love was about being chosen. Now I think it's about choosing every single day, even when it's hard." Sarah turned back to her, smiling sadly. "Maybe we both learned something we weren't ready for." Emily gave a small laugh, one that sounded more like a sigh. "Yeah, maybe that love isn't always about happy endings." Sarah nodded. "Sometimes it's about surviving the storm and still being kind afterward." They stood there quietly, sipping coffee, both women understanding that this moment, gentle, painful, forgiving, was their goodbye. Not forever, but for now. Before Emily left, Sarah said, "He's taking me out tonight. Somewhere quiet. He said he wants to start over. I think I'll let him." Emily smiled faintly. "You should. You both deserve another chance." As she stepped out onto the porch, the sun broke through the clouds for the first time in days. The world looked cleaner, softer. Emily turned and looked at Sarah one last time. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" Sarah asked. "For still being kind." Emily replied. Sarah smiled. "You were never the enemy, Emily. Just someone caught in the middle of a broken story." Emily walked away, her shoes splashing lightly through puddles. The cool air brushed her face, and for the first time, she didn't feel heavy with guilt. She felt human. She had made mistakes, yes, but she had faced them. So had they all. That evening, as she sat by her window again, she saw Daniel's car drive past. Inside, she caught a glimpse of Sarah laughing, Not a forced laugh, but a real one. Daniel's hand rested on the steering wheel, and for a brief second, Emily saw what Sarah had wanted her to see all along. The man she had fallen in love with. Not perfect, but trying. Emily smiled to herself. She didn't feel jealousy this time. Just peace. Sometimes love stories don't belong to us. Sometimes we're just passing through them, helping others find their way back. As night fell, Emily turned off her phone, made herself tea, and sat by the window listening to the soft wind. The world outside seemed new again, not because everything had been fixed, but because she had accepted what couldn't be. The next morning, she packed a small bag and decided to leave town for a while. Maybe visit her sister in Vancouver, start fresh. As she zipped her suitcase, her phone buzzed once more. It was a text from Sarah. "I don't know where we'll end up, but thank you for reminding me that love is worth fighting for." Emily smiled through her tears. "You don't owe me thanks," she replied. "Just be happy." She left the message on read after that, not waiting for a reply. Some words didn't need answers. They just needed to exist. On the drive out of town, the morning sun painted everything gold. The same streets, the same houses, but they looked different now. Maybe it was because she finally understood that closure isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's just the sound of your own breath when you realize you can let go. She rolled down her window, letting the cool air rush in, her heart both heavy and light at once. There was no going back, and that was okay, behind her. Sarah and Daniel were beginning again, slowly stitching their story back together. Ahead of her, a new chapter waited, one where love didn't have to be complicated or borrowed. One where she could finally choose herself as the town faded behind her. Emily whispered to the wind, "It's time." And with that, she drove on, steady, free, and ready for whatever came next. Because sometimes love's truest ending isn't to people finding each other again. It's one person finding herself after losing what she was never meant to keep.